Hey there, friends. This is Bill MacDonald, the English Language Arts reading doctor. And since today's passages from sixth grade both take place writing about events outside, I wanted to have a background so I could be outside with them, enjoying how to share this passage with you. Now, when we talk about transitioning, sometimes we need to think of simple things like if you look at my hand for a second, I want you to think of a teeter-totter. Well, sometimes we can do a cause with a transition that has an effect as a result. We can have a compare as the teeter and a transition over to the totter. The C, something specific they're writing about with the transition, the T, over to the saw. Trying to do the right hands because my hands are not used to having reversed screens. So this question, I can tell that the students, what they did was read the very first answer choice, and because the answer was true, they didn't pay attention to what the question was. So they have to make sure that they read the entire question, underline everything that's important in the question, and label what the subjects of that question is to make sure they're doing what the question is asking. The question was comparing and contrasting two different passages. One about the space shuttle, the capital endeavor, and another one about a way to get down to the Grand Canyon called the Capital Grand, Capital Canyon, Capital Sidewalk. Now, I'm not teaching grammar right now, but that's what I call a TMI, a teachable moment of instruction. That if you have the name of something, it was called the Space Shuttle Endeavor, but you don't capitalize space or shuttle because that wasn't part of its name. But because it was called the Capital Grand, Capital Canyon, Capital Sidewalk, then tell your students the name of uh, a special set of stairs. uh, all of the words get capitalized. So let me show you the big reason why the students did so poorly in this question in sixth grade. 24% chose right away the answer A because it was true that the Grand Canyon Skywalk is now an attraction for the public to enjoy. And why did I underline and label? Because in my rules, as soon as I'm reading out loud, I have to underline and label. Okay. And so the cool thing about the new test coming up is that one of the extra 10 rules is going to be highlighting. So if you look at my folder for a second, yes, this is regular multiple choice, odd, A, B, C, D. But if your students did not label by citing evidence, by selecting or highlighting text in the sentence, paragraph, or passage themselves, it wasn't going to do it for them. They're going to have to go back to the passage, and in the same way that I highlighted the answer choices, I had to go highlight them inside the passage, not just the sentence. And in some cases, number 7 was true. There was more than one correct answer. There was more than one place in the passage where I could prove the answer. So this is going to be a great way for you to begin to prepare your students for the different types of questions. And a lot of you tell your kids to prove the answer. And basically, that's the difference between a 1 and a 2. What is the answer to the question? The answer is going to be B. Okay. Where is the answer? Okay. We're going to use the highlighter to say where it's the answer by giving some examples. Okay. But here's what went wrong. The question was a compare, transition, contrast. How is the Grand Canyon Skywalk in the selection quotation marks? Do look down, exclamation, closing quotations. Unlike, contrasting with, different from the space shuttle. Notice I didn't put my capital on. Endeavor, capital, in the selection quotation, capital A, capital massive, capital mission, closing quotations, question mark. Okay. Now, because they weren't asking a massive mission, they were asking a question. That's why the question mark is on the outside of the quotation mark in this case. They're asking this entire question. Now, like I said, the letter A was true. So 24% of your students in Texas chose it, but we're needing to make sure that the second part is not true. And something that I noticed that they don't do often, they said, how is the Grand Canyon sidewalk in the selection look down the second passage, unlike the Space Shuttle Endeavor in the selection, the first passage. So they're talking about the second passage in the questions instead of the first passage. So if the kids weren't able to flip their teeter-totters around and make sure they put details for the second passage first and the first passage second, they were going to have trouble. Okay. Now, very quickly, like I mentioned, a teachable moment of instruction. Why did I put my cap on? Because we have to remember that there's a lot of things that need capitals, and those were proper nouns, the name of a spaceship, and the name of a walk that helps people get down to the bottom and back to the top of the Grand Canyon. So let's take a look, and I want you to look at the choices. The Grand Canyon sidewalk has served as a model for other projects to come. That is true. If it's highlighted, it's true. But see how here, I can't find that in the Endeavor. It wasn't a project. It was just a spaceship, and it was just being moved. No other projects were mentioned in the entire passage, that first passage about moving the Endeavor from one location to another in California. Letter C, 29% of the kids chose it because, again, the Grand Canyon sidewalk has been built to withstand extreme conditions. And I can find that answer in two places. That's true, but also the Endeavor was built to withstand extreme conditions. Letter D, the Grand Canyon sidewalk is constructed with heavy materials. That is true. I can find it for you, but so was the Endeavor. So what I highly suggest you do, for those of you that have my redevising graphic organizer, go to the bottom part. Since they mentioned the second passage first, we're going to put it first. The Grand Canyon Skywalk, letters A, B, C, and D. It has to be true because all of those were true for this one, this passage, and one of them only has to be false. And so as we look, Grand Canyon Sidewalk was true. If I look in paragraph 5, I'm going to find that it's now an attraction for many people to enjoy in the paragraph 5. Let me take a look at it for you. There it is. They're asking about the second passage. So I'm gonna do what I should have done first and put the second passage first, the one about the Grand Canyon skywalk. Now you can't do this in your book, but you can remember to make sure you check that. So in paragraph 5, 25A, it does say that it's been open to the public, and since then 30 million attractions has welcomed millions of visitors. So yes, it's true that it's an attraction for the public, but if you look at the Endeavor 25A, it's now a permanent exhibit. Every day people come and see the shuttle that flew so many daring missions. So since both of them are true, that makes the sentence letter choice wrong, because we're wanting something that's true for the second passage and untrue. There's no content about it in the first passage. So we're going to eliminate letter A. Letter B, it's true in paragraph 6, and I can't find it in the first passage. So letter B says, it has served as a model for projects. Let me look at paragraph 6. Like I said, I have it organized better now. The success encouraged similar projects in such places as Canada and Malaysia. So your students on the open-ended would have to, in order to get a 2, would have to prove their answer and say in paragraph 6, there it is, or they can highlight the answer right there. So it's highlighted for you there, and there's nothing about future projects in B, so that's the answer. But let's go ahead and find out that we can find letters C in both passages, which would make them similar, not different. So letter C says, the Grand Canyon skywalk has been built to withstand extreme conditions. So it is true. 25C. The foundation is made of many tons of steel. It's strong enough to hold the weight of 71 airplanes. That's one place. And I can also look before, it said, how is it going to handle wind? So how can it hold the weight of many visitors? So I could prove it in paragraph 3 here and here. I could also prove it in paragraph 5 by how many tons of steel its foundation has and how many airplanes it could hold in terms of its weight. Okay, so the problem is that means that this answer is also in the other passage. So on the Endeavor 25C, right here, it says extreme conditions. In paragraph 1, the Space Shuttle Endeavor, one of 4 retired space shuttles, began its last mission. It was not to space, however. So even though it's not written, you can infer. So if you watch my hand, I'm going to infer, I'm going to read between the lines that in order for a ship to be able to make it into space, it's going to have to be able to handle some very extreme conditions. So that's why in my graphic organizer, right here, you can see the word infer, that you can find it. And finally, the last one, it's true, 25D. Let's see what it says real quick. 25D. The Grand Canyon Skywalk is constructed with heavy materials. 25D. Grand Canyon Skywalk. Back on the top for you. 25D. Massive materials, tons of steel, and so you can use that same portion. Uh, that's tons, as for every ton, that's 2,000 pounds. So that does have massive materials. And the Space Shuttle Endeavour, it has to be heavy because if you look at 25D over here in paragraph 3, they had to put huge steel plates on top of the streets along the route to move it. And it was to protect the sewer pipes from being broken under Endeavor's weight. So it had very heavy materials. So that's how I would use a combination of the revising graphic organizer to compare how something mentioned is true for a passage, but it has to be not true for the other one when you're comparing and contrasting. So make sure that your kids practice labeling, because you're going to have to find, even if it's true for all four in one, your kids can't choose all four. They have to find out which one it's not true, because that was the question. Which one is it unlike in the Space Shuttle Endeavour? So the actual Endeavour, not the selection, but the Space Shuttle itself is an attraction for the public to enjoy. The Space Shuttle wasn't a model for other projects at all, because that was never mentioned. It's built to extreme wind conditions, and the Endeavour was also constructed with heavy materials. So that's why I put and. That's a way to solve this problem. So hopefully with a combination of the redevising graphic organizer, doing your own little teeter-totter, and putting A, B, C, D. If you want to write out more information, more hashtagging, if you want, that would help. And also it helps to have the little checklist of the advanced folder, this portion right here, so you can see which types of question response types, the constructive response questions, could be used to start practicing for next year. And I felt it was very handy with the case of the labeling, which was number 6, citing evidence by selecting highlighted. We're doing our own highlighting there. So please share or tag your reading teacher friends so that they can practice the teeter-totter concept, where it's true for one but not true for the other one, because all 4 statements in the second passage were true. Okay. Also share it with your writing teachers, because if one of you is teaching only reading and the other one is teaching writing, a heavy dose has to be on answering open-ended, extended, and essay responses, along with editing and revising, because editing, revising, and essay, that's all writing, and reading is specifically understanding the content, comprehending the content. And apparently the kids just didn't even comprehend the question correctly, because they chose the first one that was true about one, but they did not highlight the part that was supposed to be untrue about the second one. Goodbye and God bless.